So welcome back to Evolving with Energy series. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to listen in, I invite you to remember that we have evolved from energy, from the very atoms in our cells, and have materialized into these amazing energetic bodies. But as we've grown, we tend to discard the body's innate intuition connecting to energy resources. And we tend to put all of our focus in the mind to do all the work, which creates a disconnect to those valuable resources that we have within the whole body. And this is why I'm sharing this series, to explore ways our own energy can offer balance and support in your everyday life. Deb is my last guest of the series, and she has developed a career like no other. She is truly a hidden gem in the Des Moines community, as she provides services from ancient healing modalities to new cutting-edge genetic practices. Deb has also evolved with these energy techniques and is able to offer a holistic approach to promote balance and well-being, both energetically and physically. And she does this by using multi-disciplinary approaches tailored to your unique qualities and circumstances. A little bit about Deb's history, since she's a lifelong learner. Deb is a licensed acupuncturist, healer, and founder of Feel Good Clinics, and is a lover of functional and regenerative Chinese medical treatments. She is also licensed through the Board of Medicine and is a diplomat of Oriental Medicine by the National Certification Commission for Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. Deb's main goal is to inspire others to take an active approach to their health and happiness through their own intuitive wisdom, as she is, just like me, a firm believer in the power of the mind and body connection and having the ability to heal thyself. I'm very excited to share with you, Deb, because I have had such amazing results with her practices. As I moved from Southern California to Iowa, there were so many things happening in my life. I needed a lot of support to shift the changes that I had just experienced. And I looked up acupuncturist in Des Moines, and I found Deb on a search. And she was actually offering services in the town that I was living in. So after the first session, I knew I needed to commit to my wellness and started to receive treatment from Deb bi-monthly. I went every 2 weeks. And the shift was subtle, but I realized just how beneficial acupuncture at that time, when I was seeing her for, was. It was so beneficial for me to find balance and helping to regulate my nervous system. And I was able to attend Drake classes full time, manage a family life, and support my father-in-law, who had Lewy body disease at that time. It was and my husband also had detached from the Navy, and he was floundering, figuring out this whole civilian life. So if I hadn't taken that time out for myself and really made that commitment, I don't know where I would be right now, to be honest with you. Also, working with Deb just isn't treatment focused. She takes the time to listen and responds with compassion and dedication for your health. She is truly as service to others, and you can really see it and feel it when you're in her presence. So I'm here to introduce to you Deb. Welcome, Deb. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, April. That was such a wonderful introduction. Wow. Makes me feel really good to hear that. Oftentimes patients, they come they get what they need and then they go. And sometimes there's a passing thought, I wonder how they're doing, because a lot of times what I do is I'm the person that helps maybe connect them for what they need. And then when they're ready, I set them free again, let them continue on their path. So that really was a beautiful introduction. Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. And can you just share your story of how you started working with energy medicine and how that's developed through time?
Well, I remember actually going to an acupuncturist. It would have been around somewhere around 1999, 2000. And I'd injured my back and had tried some chiropractic and it was fine. But there was a moment when I wasn't moving forward, and this chiropractor actually suggested I go to an acupuncturist. And that first treatment, I realized afterward, I went home and I slept for 4 hours, and I realized that this was a powerful medicine and that I needed to investigate that further. And my life just kind of took off after that. It was around somewhere in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it's just, when you experience something that's so profound and it's something that you need to seek it and explore more
Right.
about it. And so your practices, I mean, being in Des Moines, you truly are a hidden gem. I've referred several people to you when I've supported them with Reiki, and it felt like there's just acupuncture just gets right in there and with your intuition even. So can you just share what that looks like when a person is to receive the treatment from you, from the initial contact, walking through the process, what does that look like? Because some people are they hear about it, all they see is needles,
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
much more
Yeah.
to it than that,
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if there are people who are deathly afraid of needles, we can use other forms, acupressure, using laser therapy. So there's different things you can do if someone's really afraid of it, because really the body is an energy system, and whether you tap a needle, which is metal, so it's tapping into the electrical system of the body, you can use that, or you can use various other modalities. You can absolutely just use your finger and you can press it. You can use laser, you can use light energy, you can use a lot of different things. But generally, when someone comes in and they want acupuncture, oftentimes people come in with something that they read about, they heard about, and they want to try that. And acupuncture is the first avenue into my office. So when someone comes into my office, we'll discuss what their issues are, ranging from headaches to insomnia to emotional problems, digestive problems, whatever the case may be. And if it feels like it's a fit for acupuncture, then we proceed. They're on the table. I do place needles in the body that correspond with what we call meridians. They're energy lines that help move the blood, move the energy to those areas that need more attention. So, and acupuncture is just one of those things that I use. That's the first thing when people come in. But oftentimes we start looking at other things based on what they say, how their presence is, what I'm picking up energetically. It may be something else. It may be allergy treatments that I do that are non-acupuncture. It might be something called HPN, which is high performance direct neural feedback, where we're placing electrodes on the head to send little signals. Or it could be a system that we developed a few years back called Jennison, where we're sending digital signals and frequencies attached to words in which help the body and the mind align with those principles. So those are, higher thoughts, higher words that we can associate with that raise our vibration and put us into a higher consciousness state. So there's Jennison, and then there's something that I developed over the last 3 years, and I call it high presence neurobalancing. And it was something that just developed over time. And what I find is what I put my hands on the sides of people's heads, and I will balance the right and left side of the brain. And in order to do that, that energy will just move through back and forth, and it's fascinating how it happens. And so I can talk about that as well. But really, when someone comes into my office, all of those things are taking place in my mind, and I'm just picking up information from what they're telling me or what they're showing me or how they're behaving, or just other information I pick up in the ether, about what's happening. And then based on that, I will choose one or more of those modalities in any given treatment.
That's wonderful. I know what you mean by that, because supporting people with Reiki or sound healing, or even walking them through a tapping, because tapping also for me helps, because it's working on those meridians as well. And, somebody might show up because they're guided for a certain technique because somebody told them about it, but it's really that's something else underlining that also needs to come through to support them as well. Yeah. And I love how you talk about the emotional too. I think a lot of people, especially during the shift in the last few years, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of emotions happening. And when things outside of our control are happening, then there's some disconnect there. You can just feel it, right, in our bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm finding that the way that we evolve with our energy is through like 3 different areas, kind of step by step. First is information, then it's frequency, and it's resonance. So the information comes from everything around us, everything that runs through us. So whether it's our food that we're taking in, there's information that when you eat that food and break it down, that your body takes and moves that nutrition into different parts of the body. There's information that we get from our family, from our friends, from our social interaction, and that is more for the emotional aspect of it, the connections. And so there's that information that's traveling from person to person. There's also your own study and your own research, your own passions, what you're looking for. You're actively looking for information for your mind, and to also utilize that information to help your body, your emotions, your physical, your emotional, your intellect, all of those things. And then there's just information, what I call that floats in the ether. And I'll use this as an example. I don't know how many times that I will be thinking of something, and then I will leave the room, and then I'll forget what I was thinking about, and I'll move back to that location and I pick it right back up again. So I think that there definitely is information floating and transferring in the ether. And so we're constantly picking up information. It's almost like from our pineal gland, which acts kind of like an antenna. It's picking up, it's sending and receiving information constantly. And so what do we do with all that information? Well, so we have all that information. Now we look at frequency. And we all know that when we raise our vibration, we're happier, we're looking for those things. But with like frequency, we actually emit a certain frequency of wherever we are. And once we take that frequency and do something for ourselves, gather more information, we raise that consciousness, and then our frequency goes up, and then you're able to emit and pull in information along that frequency. So then you take that frequency that you're on, and I like to think about how you can see it in nature when birds start flying together, they're all in the same frequency. You see those big groups of them where they just all float through the air together and they turn. And the same thing with fish. They all are on the same frequency, meaning that they're all tapped into that same line, meaning that their whether their soul, their spirit, their bodies, the shell that they're in is emitting and responding to the same information. And then that's called resonance. They're resonating with each other on that frequency. And so take that a step further. think about all of our cells in our body. As soon as we, in our mind or our soul, sends information, all of the cells start coming in line. And once they do, think about what a cell is. Think of a battery cell. All of our cells are charged and they're waiting for information. And once one cell has the information, it just transfers to all of them.
Yes.
And so you can do that. And it's all within the same shell, but then take it a step further, like the birds, like the fish, those cells communicate with not only each other within our own shell of existence, but also they're connected to everybody else's as well. So then we get that when we're in the same frequency with someone else, we're resonating with them. Our cells are resonating with their cells. And therefore, oftentimes when you're around someone who has a higher frequency, if you're attracted to it, you move toward it, you want to be around it, and you start resonating in the same frequency. And therefore allowing you to expand your consciousness, heal with that new information, those new abilities, because you've gathered that through emitting and receiving those frequencies. So that's where I've been evolving and understanding how energy works to heal. So that's, I mean, all of my lifetime of practice and what have you for the last 25 years. That's where I'm moving. I'm recognizing that information is sent through frequency, and then you resonate with someone else and you raise your vibration.
Perfect. That's beautiful. That's exactly what I'm about.
Right.
And I've witnessed that every day, because I'm just going to give a little side story here. Just happened yesterday. My husband and I, we just became certified in open water scuba, and we wanted to dive here in San Antonio. And so we headed to a dive shop close to a lake out here. And the other dive shop that we saw in town here wasn't much, there was, I don't know. It just didn't feel right. When you walk into a store, you walk into a place, you're like, it feels like a dead end. And then so we decided to go to this other place, and lo and behold, this guy comes up, because we're trying to find a dive place, and literally the water level's down. It's winter, right? They have had a drought. Some places along this lake was closed. And he said, well, they have a military little recreational area there. And the other dive guy, he's retired Army, and he dives there all the time. He brought it up on his iPad. He showed us exactly where it was. Guess what? We went out there yesterday. It was like, oh, this is the perfect thing. This is the perfect place. We didn't know where, but it was just that seeking and that asking. And that's what it is, being open and curious, instead of shutting down and saying, well, these people aren't going to know because that guy didn't know, and this is never going to happen. When people get in that spiral of that lower, I'm just going to say lower vibration, then that's what they're going to attract, or that's all they're going to see. So keeping open and curious and keeping that seeking, and you just never know what's going to show up for you. So I love how you explain that. And it's so true. So true.
Yeah. I experience it every day. I'll give you an example of something that happened to me. So I was at my dad's house, and I was talking to my sister in the backyard. I had gotten a flat tire on my car. So we had the air pumped up. We took it over to a car shop. And while we were waiting, we came back, and an hour or two went by, and I said to my sister, oh, now I have to go ask Dad to, get in his car. And my dad's 80, so it takes him a long time to get in the car to drive me over there. And I said, I need to get there quickly based on the circumstance of the shop staying open. And so I walked to the front yard, and my dad was talking to some lady in her car. And I said, Dad, I hate to interrupt, but I need you to take me to go get my car. And the lady in the car, in the street, said, I'll take you. And so I just hopped in, and she took me right there. I avoided the whole problem I was foreseeing.
Love it.
I know. And these kinds of things happen all the time, all the time. So, you know, like when you're in the right, when you're in the right frequency and your vibration is high, things just come to you because you're open to them and open to receiving them.
Yes. And I really, really enjoyed hearing that you had a flat tire and it didn't get you down. It was more like, okay, I have this flat tire. What do I need to do to get it done? I think people, they're just, they keep looking for the negatives, or they keep looking for something to validate why things are going wrong when there's so many things that are going right.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're working with clients, Deb, I have a question about what are you noticing, like common trends or disruptions within the body recently over the last 2-3 years? What are you noticing maybe that keeps coming up?
Okay, so on the physical level, I'm seeing people come in with, another one came in yesterday, headache, nausea, fatigue, like body fatigue, and also just mental fatigue and tiredness. On the physical level, that's what I'm seeing. On the mental, emotional level, lots of anxiety. Anxiety is through the roof. People are, and a lot of times they don't even know what it is. I mean, and that's kind of anxiety. People either know what it is and they're having it because of that, or they don't know what it is, but they feel it. It just will show up. Some people will say, I have it first thing in the morning. Some is that they have it in the afternoon or the evening, or some people, they don't even know when it's going to happen. It just shows up. And actually, the anxiety thing happened to me. I had never had anxiety prior to 2019. And so when people would tell me they had it, until you experience it, you really don't know. You really don't know.
Yes.
And I had actually tried to change a bunch of things in my office, and the end result was I about tanked my business because I was trying to go one direction and it just wouldn't let me. Nothing. I just kept getting roadblocks, and I kept spending and spending. And eventually, I realized, I thought, well, you better put the brakes on pretty fast here. And then there was this series of about, I think, probably a buildup, a couple months of pretty intense anxiety. And then I searched out different things to do, and I did 3 things that really helped me. And they were, I used binaural beats. And so the sound, I did theta and delta sound waves and binaural. And basically, this is how I learned how to do healing. This high presence neurobalancing was the binaural beats, and feeling that go back and forth. It kind of anchored itself in me, and then I could feel it in others. And so I could
Yes.
help balance that.
Can you,
So,
for those that aren't familiar with those binaural beats, can you just give a little um, explanation about what that is?
absolutely. So we have a right side and left side of our brain, and a lot of times we get stuck either on the emotional side or on the practical, I'll call it the matrix side, where you're just stuck in a pattern. I have to do this, I have to do that, do it this way, protocols, and just living very rigidly. So binaural beats, what they do is they take either music or just a sound, and they'll wire it through the left and the right side of your headphones. And so you'll hear the sound, and it almost feels like the sound is moving through you from one side to the other. What it does is it retrains the brain to move back and forth instead of getting stuck on one side or the other. And it's great because you can do it in you can do it in any of the frequencies, but generally they'll put the delta is what frequency you'll be in when you want to go to sleep. So you could actually put on delta binaural beats, and it can help put you to sleep if you have problems sleeping. If you do theta, that's where a lot of the healing takes place. A lot of your intuition takes place there. You can do theta. I did a lot of theta waves. And there's also your alpha, which is when you're awake, but your eyes are closed. And your beta waves are when you're awake, your eyes are open. You can do any of those waves, and you can practice. And just by listening, it's going to retrain your brain to use evenly both sides of your brain. So you start, enhancing the way you think and the way that you can bring in energy, bring in information. So that's binaural beats. And you can find that on YouTube for free. Just type in BINURAL, binaural beat, and then you can put in the waves, either theta or delta or whatever you want to listen to.
Yes, and don't take Deb's word for it here. It's the open curiosity and just, let me just check this out. And then the universe or your frequency is asking for more, and then you can connect and things just start showing up.
They do.
So
Absolutely.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I also had a wonderful experience with you and Hans with Genizen. And my experience, I mean, I didn't have to know. Sometimes I go into things blindly, and that's the best way. So I don't have expectations, right? When we have that expectations of, oh, this is how it's going to happen, and this is what's going to happen to me, versus, let's just see what happens. I trust Hans, I trust Deb. Let's see, because I'm willing to be open and unlearn and learn new things about myself. That's what life's all about. So I experienced Genizen, and let me tell you, after the 5th session, it was like a light bulb aha moments I was having. Can you explain about Genizen and how it works and what a treatment looks like?
Absolutely. So Genizen was developed after I had been doing allergy treatments for a good 10 or 12 years. And the allergy system I used, advanced allergy therapeutics, it's about sending signals or frequencies. It's just attached to a word that represents the thing that we're trying to treat. So, for example, if you had a problem with, let's say, dairy, I could send a signal and there's a sound and a vibration attached to the word dairy. The body picks it up. That's information that's traveling through the ether, and the body recognizes it. And then while the signal is being sent, at the same time, we're doing some stimulation on the spine where the autonomic nervous system lies along your spine. And what it does is it bypasses your thinking brain. Think of it as the subconscious of your body. And what happens is when you're stimulating those nerve bundles while the signal is being sent, there's a new association, a positive association with that word. And so suddenly now the dairy that someone had a problem with before is now resonating in a different way, because now the information is, hey, I feel really good because my body feels really good right now when I'm associated with that item. So when someone comes in and they want to do Genizen, we will send some signals from this computer system, and it'll come up with words like joy or love or resonance or happiness. And in order to have the body and the mind and the spirit kind of align with that, we send the signal and the body's receiving that. And at the same time, we'll stimulate all these nerve bundles on the spine, which the autonomic nervous system will associate now that word with feeling really good, and it'll assimilate that and start resonating with that word. And the highest thought that you can give a word like joy or love, the body and the mind and their soul will just align with it. And then suddenly, once the body has aligned with it, you recognize a change in the way that you experience your life. And a lot of times those words, when you're aligned to them, they'll show up almost as confirmation that indeed something has changed and you are now living in a higher conscious state. And I'll give you an example that happened to me with Hans. We were at home and I was cleaning the house, and I was a little irritated that day because I felt like I wasn't getting enough help. And I explained this to Hans. He said, well, let's do a Genizen treatment. And I said, all right. I said, well, I know what the problem is. You guys just aren't helping me. And but backstory on that, I was also had been toying with this information about being prepared for the future, being prepared for things that were coming. And it was always on my mind to keep my house clean and to keep things organized. So I would always be prepared. Well, of all the hundreds of words that were in this system, that's the word that showed up, prepared. And so he treated me for that. The word showed up, he treated me, and then we went on as my day went. And I thought, well, I'll humor him because I don't think that's the problem. The problem is they're just not helping me. So Anyway, that night, literally that night, I was probably 2 a.m. I woke up and I sat up straight in bed and I heard in my head, like it was somebody else's voice, and it said, "You are prepared." Yeah. And I
Wow.
knew from that moment, like I don't have to do anything different. Whatever it is that I need to be doing, the purpose in my life or what's coming for me, what I need to be prepared for, I am prepared. And
Yes.
and that happened, as a side note, I mean, for you, April, that happened in November last year. And then
Mm,
in January, I had big life changes that happened starting in January. From January until May, it was a very, very difficult time in my life. And I knew I was prepared for this task. And
yes.
and I was so grateful for that. And that came up many times in my mind. I am prepared. I am prepared for
Mhm.
this. So
Yes. And that's what I loved about Jennison. And thank you for sharing that and just breaking that down for us. For me with Jennison, it felt like it was the validation when those words would come up, and it was like, oh, abandonment,
right.
things of that nature would come up. And then I would shift it to, I would make a mantra and repeat it to myself to remind myself that I am not abandoned, and so also I want everybody to think about, we're born perfectly, right? All of our systems are working and everything. And just as you said, Deb, it's the environment or food or emotional, from other people in our lives or, things out of our control, and it creates this dysfunction. And then we're caught in our brains or minds are trying to figure everything out. And then we either are in a high emotional state or we're in a high functioning, I gotta do to prepare, right? I
Yeah.
have to be prepared for this. And so for me, working or allowing Jennison to work through me, it like opened up those springs of energy that was already within me that had closed down through
Right.
the traumas in my life.
Absolutely. It does
So
open up.
it just was very open and freeing, knowing that I had all the support within me. It's always been there. I just forgot.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty powerful. I'm really grateful for all the things that I've gone through, and the people that have been along the journey to help me grow and learn this. And so yeah, absolutely, Jennison is a remarkable tool. Um, yeah, I had someone come in the other day, and what came up was toxin and culture. And so we hypothesized on all sorts of things, and as it turns out, a week or two later, she came back and she said, "Oh, as it turns out, I was eating food that was had mold in it, so there was toxins, and it was being cultured in my own refrigerator." But
Oh,
she realized that, and that was the word. Those are the words that came up. So sometimes when we get some of these words, this information, we don't know what it means. But if you keep your receptiveness open
yes.
and look for it, and just wait till you get the understanding, it will show up. It will definitely show
Yes.
up. Mhm.
Yes. And I want everybody to hear that, Jennison and whatever approaches you decide to take with these energetic modalities, it's the layers that we're working through. We're working through layers. So yes, one treatment is going to help you feel a little better, but it's really sticking to it. Like I said before, from my experience, I saw Deb for like 2 years, uh, and really stuck to that and was able to witness and see the transformation. And of course, now looking back, of course, hindsight's 2020, right? It's like, oh yeah, of course, but when you're in it and you're moving through it, even though it might feel a little wonky at first, you know that things are shifting and changing already.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
energies and you're working from the inside out. That's what I always say. this energetic support, this transformation is happening on a cellular level. So it's
Yes,
working
back
from
to
the
that.
inside out. So
Yep.
it takes time to manifest on the physical level.
Yep. Yep. Think of every cell in your body as a power pack of energy, like a battery cell, and they have to communicate from one to the other. And sometimes it does take a little to get through it. But once the body and each of those cells starts reactivating, it's like it's a contagious thing that it'll start spreading everywhere, and it becomes very fun. I had a patient in here a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about what brings her joy, and she said, actually, it's this learning process right now. She goes, I did something. I decided to, I think for her it was mantras and just saying something over and over again. And she said, and so now she manifested some money in her life. And she said, this is so much fun. So the joy I'm having right now is learning and growing.
Yes.
So how wonderful is that?
How wonderful. How can it get better than that? That's what
Right?
I always say. And
Yep.
and really it's about people understanding that you're empowering yourself
Right.
as you're learning more about you and how this is happening. Like you said, Deb, it's like fun, kind of like ooh, what's going to show up today? Or, how is this going to transform? Instead of being more in the lower doom, gloom, nothing's ever going to work, that type of thing. It's
Mhm.
just shifting that, finding an easier way to maneuver through those thoughts. And thoughts are even energy too. Would you
Absolutely.
would you
Yep. Yep.
say that this is just me curious here, Deb, that the main root cause of bodily like dysfunction stems from our perceptions, from thoughts within our mind?
Yes. And I mean, how many times have we done something and then later when we learn like there's a better way, I mean, whatever that is, whether it's it could be anything, filling up a gas can because you spilled a bunch of gas one day, you're like, oh, let me do it better this time, or plastering a wall or whatever it is. But even in our bodies, like, oh, I notice when I eat this makes me feel this way. And so you make a different choice. And as you gather that experience and knowledge, then you make better decisions, even just in your mind. You're like, you think to yourself, oh, I don't have to think that way. I remember a few years ago, it's as simple as saying, I don't have to think that way anymore. I remember a
Yeah.
few years ago being upset about something, and I thought to myself, well, you've been upset about this same topic, whatever it was, many times. So how about we just shorten the time that you're upset about it? So literally I gave myself, 30 seconds and I was done. And I thought, oh, well, that was easy. Let's move on.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden you give yourself permission to change the way you think about something. And absolutely you can bypass a lot of emotional pain, physical pain, irritation, whatever emotion that you don't want to experience, or circumstance. You can move through it a lot faster than you think you can because we have experience with it already. Like, well, how long do you want to sit in that pit? You can decide. You can either stay there for 3 days like you have in the past, or you can think about it for 30 seconds and say, okay, I know this pattern. I'm going to leave it behind.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And those who have experienced like extreme traumas and they just feel that it's just like a repetitive loop, and
Right.
maybe even their bodies responding without thoughts, how would you support them?
Oh, you know what? In that case, that's when I do my neural balancing. And most often it's the right side of the brain that's kind of closed off, and that's the side of our brain that is the going within, your intuition, your knowing, your connection with God or higher presence. Your left side is all about the outside world, navigating the outside. And so we're so left brain dominant that the right side's kind of shut down. So what I'm doing is opening up that right side. So when there's so much trauma that someone can't mentally or emotionally go there, I usually will do that kind of work because nobody has to say anything, nobody has to do anything. The person just gets to lay and experience this. And oftentimes I will see things or feel things based on the resonance of my cells and their cells. And they oftentimes will see very similar things or sometimes completely different. And sometimes they sleep through the whole thing.
Yeah.
So So there's a lot of times work being done without their conscious knowledge because maybe the trauma was so difficult and they don't need to know. They don't need to relive it. And so when I do that work, I'm the conduit at that moment. Like energy is just going through me and I'm witnessing healing happening. I'm witnessing things changing and they don't have to know. I always offer information afterwards if they want to. And most of the time we are seeing the same pieces of information.
That is just so fascinating and amazing because we're all energy.
Aren't we?
You know, and when we do experience traumas, there, it creates a block. It's the body's way of protecting against feeling that again.
Right.
And so just by opening that up in a very kind, gentle, peaceful way. And I love that you said that they don't have to talk it out. They don't have to talk about it or address it. Just them showing up and being willing to have this experience with you is enough.
Right. It's exciting and it is evolving continually. What I saw 3 years ago when I started doing this neurobalancing and what I'm seeing today, everyone is moving along and shifting. And the things that I was working on before, I saw a lot of, one type of energy shift. Now it's a whole different level for everyone. It seems that everyone is leveling up, everyone is moving forward, and everyone seems to be more receptive to healing. And it's whether they're even conscious of it or not, it's happening. I'm seeing it.
Yes. And you saying that just makes me think of if they're not conscious of it and this evolution's happening and it's happening very fast.
Yes, it is.
Can't that create also, if they don't have a meditation practice or a grounding or centering or a way to connect back to themselves, if they're not practicing that and they're feeling all this shift happening rapidly, can that also create a disconnect or some wonkiness?
And that's usually when people come in. They come in because they're not sure why this is happening. So giving them information really by just talking to start out, this is what's happening right now to everyone. We are all experiencing higher levels of vibration. So it's kind of giving them the clue that this is very normal what's happening to you. This is something you're going to get through. Just be open and receptive. And then we can choose any of these treatments to help support you. And over time, you'll start to feel something different. But giving them what I'll say is maybe an assignment, whether it's meditation or whether it's creating a mantra or setting aside a little bit of time just to be quiet and rest, that just gives them something to anchor in. I always give them an idea of what they can be doing because we don't always know. I mean, we don't know what we don't know until we know that we don't know it. How many times have you heard that? And then once people kind of get on that train, then they think, oh my gosh, this is actually kind of fun. Look at what I'm discovering about myself.
Mm-hmm. And it releases any fear or self-doubt or apprehension.
Yeah. And they start to learn to trust themselves. Trust what is really happening.
Yes, exactly. Right there. Say that again, Deb.
Yes, that once you experience some of these things and it's validated either by yourself or a practitioner that kind of can walk you through it, then you can learn to trust yourself. Trust this is happening and that you are getting better and you're healing.
Yes, and I've shared in a past podcast about how when I was going through, again, this change that I described earlier, just moving to Iowa, going to school, all these things happening. And I was driving across the country to see a friend, and I was so anxious about everything. And then all of a sudden, my thoughts, it was like a knife just cut through it. And this voice, just like you said, Deb, was not mine, came through, and it said, trust and know, and it shall be so.
Oh, I love that.
I was like, where'd that come from? I dumped out my purse, grabbed a piece of scratch paper, tried to write it out as I was driving, because it was like, I need this. This is something for me to share with everyone. This is just not mine. And so just trusting in the process, knowing that you're right where you need to be, and it shall be so, right? Because of that
Absolutely.
trust.
I love it. I love it.
Yes. And I love you, Deb.
Oh, I love you too. This has been great. I'm so glad you asked me to do this today.
I am so, so grateful that you are out there, that you're courageous, that you are living your truth and your authentic self. And this is Deb, everyone. This is who she is. And you're just an amazing, amazing soul. So I'm so grateful to have experienced and know you. Yeah.
Oh, likewise. I think we've both grown and we've both gotten to share and experience a lot of growth and healing. So
Yes,
thank you.
most definitely. And for those who are interested to grow with you, to learn more, what is your contact information?
Yeah, you can contact us at feelgoodclinics.com, or you can text us at 515-556-3304.
Great. Do you have Facebook or Instagram or anything? Or are you more old school with the
I'm kind of
website?
old school. Yeah, I am kind of old
Okay.
school. I don't do a lot on Facebook. It's just it. I have so many things that I'm involved in that sitting down and then looking through all of these different accounts, I forget.
It's
I'll
more energy,
just be
right?
honest, I just forget. And so I think the easiest way is to reach out. Either you can email us at feelgoodclinics.com. You can email us at hello at feelgoodclinics.com, or you can call us.
Okay,
Yeah, and I
perfect.
think these are probably the easiest ways. I don't know, maybe it's lazy or maybe it's just old school,
No,
whatever, however you look at it.
and it's just more for you to manage, and you're
Right.
just, and what's wonderful is that it's really about word of mouth. Is that how you
Yeah.
get most of your clients, is word of mouth,
It is. And again,
referrals?
yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing. It's like cells are communicating. People communicate when they feel good and they resonate and they pass on that information to others. So that's kind of how I've been doing it.
Yeah, and you can see it too. You can see how it just over time people are shifting, and they're going to ask them, what's going on? What did you do?
Right.
And then they're going to share information about you. So
Yeah.
that's
Wonderful.
beautiful. Well,
Well,
thank you,
I so
Deb, for being
appreciate this.
here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really have enjoyed myself.
Yes, and um, I so appreciate you all being here with this series and learning more about you and trusting in your own intuition and energy resources that you have within you.
Well, thank
So
you.
until next time, be well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.